Well, hello there. So, in recent discussions with students, teachers, and even parents, the topic of loneliness has come up quite a lot. Loneliness is a feeling that's common to everyone, which, if you think about it, is actually kind of ironic that feelings associated with isolation are something that we all share. But that's the thing about loneliness, it's complicated. So I think we need to unpack it a bit if we're going to deal with it. Loneliness is closely related to feelings of loss. Loneliness is the feeling that we've lost connection, or lost our role, or lost even our value. And loneliness is the anticipation of, or the recognition of those losses. And it can be a powerful motivator because loneliness is inherently incredibly unhealthy. One study suggests that chronic feelings of loneliness can be as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day and can decrease your chances of a long life by up to 29%. Now, we've all experienced what it's like to actually be alone, and we're usually pretty good at recognizing it in other people. For example, being the new kid in school is a truly terrifying experience. It's such a powerful feeling that it motivates us to pour a ton of resources and energy into being known, into finding friends, into making connections. And it's often our memories of what it was like before we had those connections that fuel the feelings of loneliness that we experience even as adults. I think it's important to realize that feeling alone is just that. It's a feeling, not a fact. Those are two very distinct things. Most often we feel alone because something has triggered a memory of abandonment or isolation. We're more likely struggling with a memory of being alone and the resulting anticipation of that loss rather than actually being alone or isolated. When we encounter feelings of loneliness, we try to make sense of them, and that's a good thing. We want to try to rationalize our feelings, and it seems appropriate, but feelings aren't always easily translated into logic, so we can sometimes end up with faulty reasoning. For example, when I feel alone, it's easy to jump to the conclusion that it's because nobody cares about me, or nobody loves me, or I'm just not important enough. That gives a logical framework to the feeling, but it's probably not an accurate one, it's just a quick and easy one. The challenge is that while we're trying to bring logic to bear on feelings so we can make sense of them and hopefully do something about them, if our logic is faulty, it allows for insecurities to creep in. That's what makes feelings of loneliness so dangerous. It's a gateway to insecurities. Many people report feeling especially lonely during this pandemic, partially because we've lost a lot of the normal ways that we usually connect. It's easier for our minds to race then and try to make sense of these profound feelings by constructing faulty logic scenarios and making us believe that we're unloved or uncared for or not important enough, when that's simply not true. On the other hand, one of the actual frequent causes for feelings of loneliness is just simple misalignment. The truth is, not everybody feels how you feel at the same time. Not everyone needs what you need or even knows that you need it at conveniently aligned times. For example, when you're in need of company and it seems like everyone around you is busy, it could actually be that simple. It's not that they don't care about you, it's just that they don't know that you need company when they don't. It's far too easy for us to project our own thoughts and feelings onto everybody else and then judge them by not reacting the way we think they should be reacting. In all honesty, in these situations, it's not an assessment of our own value, it's actually just misaligned circumstances. That ties into the fact that we often put ourselves in the center of the story we're using to interpret reality. That makes sense. Our reality is our story. But in reality, we're not the center of everyone's story, and that's probably a really good thing. That would be terrifyingly exhausting. And so sometimes we construct scenarios where if we're the star, it means that we're being ignored, when, in all honesty, other people are just busy being the star of their own story. Most people are quite happy to connect their stories, but sometimes we need to know that that connection needs to happen. With all this in mind, I think one of the powerful ways that we can combat loneliness is to stop focusing inward and to intentionally empathize with other people. You can use feelings of loneliness almost as little reminders to check in on someone else, which ultimately is a win-win scenario because you focus your attention away from dwelling on loneliness, and you may actually help someone else who's feeling lonely at the same time. Reaching out can be challenging because sometimes loneliness tricks us into wrapping ourselves up in it rather than getting out of it. It's a bit like finding ourselves outside in the cold, and loneliness offers us a blanket. Now, we could put the blanket on and stay out in the cold, or we could just move inside where it's warm. So my advice is this: don't stay in the cold. Don't be fooled into wrapping yourself up with loneliness. Don't wait to be reached out to. If you feel lonely, do the reaching out, even if you don't feel like it. Remember that feelings of loneliness are not facts, they're feelings. And the feelings, good or bad, are always temporary. You may not be the center of everyone's story, which again is actually a good thing. That would be exhausting. But that doesn't mean that you're not loved and valued, even if your needs sometimes misalign with other people's stories. Be honest about your feelings and needs, and it'll help connect your story to other people's stories. And remember, if you're feeling lonely, you're not alone.